Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 269 of the Board Game BBQ Podcast, brought to you by Advent Games and our wonderful Patreons. My name is Dev, and I will be your host today. I have two wonderful people with me, which, if memory serves me right, I haven't spoken to in a bit. First, down in Melbourne, we've got Dan. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, Dev, I've missed you, buddy.
This is unexpected start to the episode.
What? You're right. It has been a while since we've been on.
It has been a while, yeah.
On the pod. So, yeah, looking forward to chatting to you and finding out what you've been up to.
Me too. And then, not in Melbourne, we have Conor. How you doing, Conor?
What's up, my dude? Yes, back on the pod with Dan. I feel like I'm on Dan, but I'm on with Dan a lot though. And I'm pretty sure Dan makes the calendar, so I've got a sneaky suspicion he's just trying
something going on there.
Secret's out.
Something going on. The secret's out.
I'm
good.
I'm only human.
But the cool part is I've played games with both of you over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So, and Dan, I've played a lot of games with you over the last month. I reckon.
I think we're sick of each other. So many conventions and whatnot.
Tell us about some of these.
Oh, well, I actually didn't have any down that I played with Dan, but we did manage to get in a game of 2 games of 2 Rooms and a Boom at the last Saturday at the Melbourne Game Day. And again, I feel like any time we have it's kind of like we did Bristol for a while, where it's like every game day or whatever we play Bristol with each other. Whereas 2 Rooms and a Boom is great because if you haven't played it, we talked about it on the live pod and we've talked about it a lot, but it's a game for up to 30 people where you're trying to keep the blue team's trying to keep the president in one room and the red team's trying to get the bomber into another room. And even Dan made the comment of, I've never been on your team. I've never been on a team with you. It just hasn't happened.
The thing is, Conor always looks so shady in that game as well. Always looks so shady, and every time we color share our cards. He's always on the other team. Is like, all right, now I really don't trust you.
I'm a big fan of Survivor. So I remember there was one stage where I binged the classic season of Survivors when I had a football injury. And I just always feel like 2 Rooms and a Boom is like Survivor in 15 minutes because you're going in and you're lying or you're trying to work out who's who. You're trying to build alliances. Yeah. And then
rice.
Yeah. Winning challenge. No one's winning challenge. I'm definitely not winning challenges. But it's just really fun. And I the first couple of times I played it, I didn't buy into that side of it. Whereas the last time in Sydney, where we had the big game with the Sydney group and then in Melbourne, I really just said, nah, that's it. Let's try. I wanted to be like the hero. I was like, let me set stuff up. So I tried to find out who our spies were, and I was like, right, you can't, just color share. Don't ever show anything else. And I was trying to do that. And then we had the grey ones. So the grey people don't have a team. They have their own specific victories. So 2 of them are the wife and the mistress. So I was trying to find out who the wife and the mistress were, and trying to get them onto our side and be like, hey, no. If you help us, we'll help you. So, yeah, I mean, safe to say we lost both of them. But we lost we lost the second one in the funniest way because there is a card for both the red and the blue team called the Enforcer. And and if you ask once per round, you have to show what your role is, so your entire card. And unfortunately for the blue team, the red Enforcer picked the blue team, the president. And so they knew. In fact, the red team knew who the president was before most of the blue team. So it's still kind of good because someone came into the other room and said they know who the president is. And then we went in there trying to overthrow them and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, it's just a heap of fun. So,
yeah. And it's funny because we were on opposing teams, our experiences were very different.
Yeah,
as well. So that was the first time we had this. As you mentioned, we played 2 games. The first game, it was the first time I'd actually been a leader. So actually calling shots and then picking who the hostages were that we're going to hostages or who we exchanged at the end of 5 minutes, which 5 people, and I wasn't entirely comfortable sort of in fact it was someone I think it was Sean was trying to oust me and there was going to be a bit of a coup And so the people put their hands up saying, yeah, let's oust Dan as leader. But didn't have the numbers. So I'm just cockily going, sorry, fellas, you haven't got the numbers. And then trying to, because I found I knew who the president was very early. And then, so I tried to keep the president close. And then we uncovered the mistress. And so I got the mistress to try and, because the mistress needs to be with the president at the end and not with the wife in order for the mistress to win. So I said, right, stick with me and I need you to go out and find as much information as you can. And then later in the game, we found the wife, and the wife is like, okay, I'll help you. And I'm like, so I made this false alliance because I'd already made an alliance with so right at the death knell, when I moved the wife out of the room again, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, sorry, mate, deals have already been made.
The great
game, I'm like, I don't want to be leader, please. I don't want to be leader.
It's too much stress. Yeah.
This sounds completely like the type of game I would avoid playing. Because you kind of need to buy into that kind of thing, and usually it takes me a while. And by the time it does, game's kind of over, I suppose.
First game's always a little bit rough, and then because only last 15 minutes, then it's like, right, we're going to go again. Everyone's like, oh yeah. And they've sort of got the hang of it now. They've got a bit of a tactics, bit of a strategy, and it's like, yeah, we want to play this again.
And do you think you kind of almost need someone to sort of run it in the sense that, they not only that they know what they're doing, but also like kind of encouraging and pushing people to sort of participate in that way?
Yeah. And thankfully we had Jules, because Jules made a guest appearance at the Melbourne Game Day. He was in the city working on, I think it was Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it was Flesh and Blood, so a competing trading card game.
Yeah, Jules showed up, and you're right. It's exactly what Jules did. He actually picked he actually organised what roles were going to be in the game. He actually didn't participate himself, and he kind of just managed everything as he was going from room to room, making sure that everyone was getting in with the theme of it all, and sort of managed it from afar, and that was really helpful to sort of for him to sit back and actually sort of adjudicate and whatnot.
And especially when we had the second time around a few more ambiguous roles, so the wife and the mistress, they're pretty self-explanatory, but at the same time, they're like, so I'm not on a team, so I don't really care who wins. So it's always good to have someone there. And Blood on the Clock Tower is the same. Someone that you can go and just say, hey, I need to have a chat to you about I needed something clarified. And it's interesting because I've played so many more social deduction games since I've joined the podcast. And someone asked the same question I asked when I played my first game on Blood on the Clock Tower. And it's like, is it okay to lie? It's like, of course it's okay to lie. You have to.
Encouraged.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. And it's okay. But, so for example, we talked about Bristol before. You can lie to a certain point, but you can't. Once you're sick, right? You can't get to the end of the game and still be lying. You've got to be honest at that point. So I think that's where people are sometimes, when they say, can I lie? They don't mean, it's like, what degree am I allowed to lie to? Whereas with Tombs and a Boom, Werewolf, Blood on the Clock Tower, you lie your socks off. Like, there's no repercussions for, as long as you're following the rules of, you've got to do this or whatever. But yeah, I don't think you need someone running it the same way you have to have someone running Werewolf or Blood on the Clock Tower. But it is helpful, like having Jules there. Every game I've played, I've had Jules run it. And there's actually been, I think the very first one I played, Tina was like the offsider that helped too, and then in Sydney again, Nathan, I believe his name is, who I played Cosmoctopus with. So it was like Jules and Nathan were there, and they were on opposing leaders to start with, and then they started facilitating things as well. So it's just fun. Like, and I think I first heard about it on Shut Up and Sit Down, and they were just like, this is the greatest game ever. But they probably didn't say that because they don't use hyperbole as much as I do. But yeah, so much fun. Such a great, convention, festival game. And a nice way to finish the night as well, because we sort of announced it early, saying at 7:30 we're going to be running this, and some people hung around for 7:30, knowing that it only takes 15 minutes to play anyway. It was a nice way to finish off the Melbourne Game Day.
Very good. What have you been doing with your board game time, Dan?
Well, one game I wanted to mention, because actually we were lucky enough to get a copy of this from the team at VR after PAX, actually, and that's Forbidden Jungle. So I taught Forbidden Jungle a couple of times at the Melbourne Game Day. I think there was 2 scheduled teachers I ran back to back, and then a few people borrowed it from the library, so I was free. And I said, "Do you want me to just take you through it?" And they said, "Yeah." So if anyone who's played Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, Forbidden Sky, this is the 4th in the series. It's been a while between drinks since Forbidden Sky's come out. Again, designed by Matt Leacock, Game Right Games. Again, it's in a bloody tin. I don't know why they put these games in tin.
Is it supposed to be like because like you find a tin, like you think of
I don't
like
know.
like the Forbidden Desert?
Thematic?
Yeah, that's what I get it from. Like a box, like a metal box.
It's just annoying the way they sit on the shelf in the Kallax. And from I'm trying to remember, were the Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert also different shapes, or anyway? Well, Forbidden Jungle is a different shape to the others, so it's not like you can stack them like biscuit tins or anything. But anyway, it's very much similar to all the other games. So if you enjoy those sort of cooperative, the games working against you style of game like Pandemic or the other Forbidden games, then this will be right up your eye, as it is mine. I played it a couple of times with Jen before going to the game day, and the idea is that I think it was Forbidden Island. You were trying to put together an aeroplane, which then crashes in the desert. In the desert, you're trying to put together a balloon, which then takes you up to the Forbidden Sky, and then you're trying to put a rocket ship together. Well, in the jungle, the rocket ship actually crash landed on a planet that has like a big space station, but it's being overrun by all these vines and stuff. And so you're trying to uncover a portal, which is a series of tiles. We put the tiles out just like you do with the other games. You're trying to uncover a portal, surround it with these crystals, and then activate the portal and get the hell off the space station. But there's these creatures, almost like xenomorphs from Aeon, that are there working against you, as well as all the other threats that you have during the game. So there's one way to win, and then there's 5-6 different ways to lose. You have health this time. I can't remember if you had health in the earlier games, but there's eggs that will be on the planet. There's these hatchlings, and then there's also the adults, and the adults will actually sting you, and depending on what your role is, because everyone has asymmetric roles, you'll have either 3 health or 2 health. There is actually, I think it's the biologist who's immune to the stings, so they won't actually suffer any damage themselves. But as I said, what you're trying to do is you're trying to uncover a portal, of which there are about 5 or 6 on the tiles that you'll uncover. And then there are 6 crystal cards which you have to explore just by landing on it and flipping it over. But 2 of them are like broken crystals, and there's only actually 4 crystals, I should say, that you need to surround one of the portals with. And there's these other sort of devices, there's other machinery that you'll uncover while you play. And the machinery allows you to. There's one that's like a giant bug zapper. So once you uncover it, any of the hatchlings or the adults that go onto that, they're dead. There's another one called a compeller, which allows you to force them off tiles. So you can actually, if you uncover the electrifier, you can sort of force them, almost like
push them.
Jedi force, push them into that tile, because these tiles start to become really, really heavily populated. And just like with Pandemic, how if you run out of a particular disease cube, you're not able to place it on a city, it's game over. Same thing here. If you're actually asked to put more adults on the board or more hatchlings, and you don't have any more in the stock, in the supply, then you lose. And then there's all these, and then of course you've got the threat deck. So after it's your turn and you've moved or you've explored or you've used some machinery, there's the threat deck. And the threat deck is any caves you've uncovered, well, suddenly hatchlings will appear. Or any nests you've uncovered, new eggs will appear. Or all eggs now hatch into hatchlings.
Okay.
Or all hatchlings now go into adults. And then each tile also has a different color. I think there's red, yellow, blue, and black on each of the axes, north, east, south, west of the tile. And some of the threat deck cards will say all adults move in the direction of blue.
Okay, right.
Suddenly, you've got a couple different adults around the map. They'll all sort of move off their tile onto a new tile, and if they move onto your tile, they'll sting you. So there's a lot going on. I think it's probably outside of my personal sort of the nostalgia of playing Forbidden Island for the first time. I think this one is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Only because there's a few new little tweaks, and the other. the main device that you uncover on this planet is I think it's called the configurator, and it allows you to, when you activate it or when you're on that space, you move tiles around. You start to slide those tiles around the board, and that's how you get, once you've uncovered the crystals, that's how you slide them into position to surround one of the portals. Like I said, there are a couple of different portals you can uncover in the jungle, but once you've found one that you want to actually use, you can slide these crystals into place, and you can only slide them in one direction, but you can slide them as far as you like. So you can slide them from right across the top of the map and then down, and there's already a couple of gaps. So there's already a gap in the middle of the board, but then there's also other threat cards that will ask you to start removing tiles from the game as well. So then they start producing these gaps, which works in your favor sometimes, because then you can slide these crystals into position, activate the portal, everyone's on that tile, and everyone gets the hell out of the jungle.
But then having less tiles then potentially means that is more likely that the aliens will be in a high concentration on what's left.
Correct, yeah, and it's fun. It's interesting because of the two games that I taught the scheduled teachers, the first one that we lost by one move. We had everything into position, but we couldn't. Our way was blocked because we're at one end of the jungle, if you like. We were getting everything into position at the other end of the jungle, and then one thing I've got to mention, there was webs in the way, and webs actually prevent you from moving. So that takes one action to actually remove a web, and of course they create webs all the bloody time. The other time we played, there was a lot of different nests and caves at one end of the jungle. We were working at the other end going, well, that's fine because they can stay down there. We'll stay out of harm's way. But then no sooner did we realize that we're going to run out of adults and hatchlings in the supply. Someone needs to go down the back of that jungle and start killing them.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to every time they hatch, more and more are popping up. We're going, that's fine. We're nowhere near them. But then we end up running out. I think we lost two different ways because we ran out of a couple of them. As soon as you've got a bunch of hatchlings, a bunch of adults, and then suddenly all the hatchlings turn into adults, you're like, well, we've got no more adults to put on the board. So it's very, very clever. If you like the Forbidden games, I do recommend Forbidden Jungle. It's like one way to win, 5 different ways to lose, and it's a lot of fun.
You mentioned it's your favorite, Dan. Is it also the most involved one, like the most, complex, if you call it that?
Yeah, I kind of think it is, Death. There's a lot of moving parts and a bit of particularly when you've got a lot of these hatchlings and nests and things on the board, every time you flip a threat card over, there's a bit of maintenance to, okay, we've got to put all these out, and then the next flip, okay, now they all move, so you got to sort of move them all, and everyone will sort of chip in and move them around. It's not as simple as, okay, the water rises, or, okay, there's a sandstorm, cover up a tile. There's a bit more going on than that. Yeah, it's really enjoyable. And it's a nice sort of graduation from those other games. I've only played Forbidden Sky once. I don't actually own it myself. But in terms of Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, yeah, I do recommend Forbidden Jungle. It's pretty cool.
Very good.
I guess it's interesting, right? So there's obviously 4 iterations of Forbidden games now. Do you think they have to keep making it more difficult? Like, is it the type of game, or are people happy having a different puzzle? Do they need to make it more involved? Like, what do you think?
It's interesting. It is a definite step up, and even just the sliding of tiles around the board to get them into position. So it's not just you moving from tile to tile; you're actually moving the tiles themselves, and you can move a tile with your team members on it if you like. So that's that can be helpful. And also, if you move a tile and there's got webs on it, the webs break. So that's one way of actually sort of getting some of those webs back into the supply again. But yeah, it's an interesting way of sort of keeping that franchise going, if you like, by trying to find new and interesting things. But the core mechanics of just working together, and there's always someone who can move someone who can move other people, and there's always depending on what different threats there are, there's always someone who's immune to that threat, or there's someone someone who is capable of not suffering damage from that one, or so with the Forbidden Island, there was if a tile disappears in the middle of the island, there's one person that can actually dive and move over sort of gaps and stuff. Whereas in this one, there's a jetpack, so you can sort of jump around, and it's interesting. I don't think they haven't gone too many bridges too far in terms of throwing into the mix, but it is definitely a step up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just more like, because you see so, I've got to have it's a successful game. Clearly the first three were successful. This one seems to be quite good, according to what you said. It's more, are they going to make a friendlier version, or are they going to reskin it to be something different? It's just, I always just find it interesting with the state that the games industry is in.
If you need a point of difference, so people will actually go out and buy it. If people go, well, that's just a reskin of Forbidden Desert. Why would I buy that? You need to throw something else in there, and you can actually make it easier in terms of even just with the threat deck, how you turn over 2 cards. There's got a meter that increases the threat, but you can drop it right down to the bottom and start like quite simple, or you can make it so that you're turning over three cards right from the outset.
Yeah. Like Pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can up the level of difficulty or drop it right down, which is clever in itself to have that ability to do that and play it the way you're comfortable playing it. Particularly if you're introducing it to, you might be experienced, but you're introducing it to new players. You don't want everyone just get smashed right out the gate, because then they're not going to buy into it.
Very good. Well, I played a game this week with Conor, actually, and Harry, and that was White Castle from Voidborn Games, which I thought we could have a quick chat about. So, yeah, I mean, I think Voidborn Games are starting to become one of the main players lately in, all of this new hotness that we're seeing coming out. Their games seem to be hitting the mark. Obviously, we had Bitoku from them last year, and that was a big success, I think.
Lacrimosa,
which I played earlier this year. And now White Castle, which we played on Wednesday. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's a quick game, like it's a smaller game than Lacrimosa and Bitoku, and took us about an hour, I want to say, an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yep, about that. Yep.
So I think that was on Tabletop Simulator, so on the table it would take 60 minutes for sure. But it has a lot of crunchiness to it. It has a bit of this, I found it's got for me a bit of this aura of the older sort of medium worker placement Euro games. And the one that it reminded me of was Marco Polo, because obviously you use dice as workers, and the value of the dice has some kind of significance to, what are you doing and how you can do it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think this is going to be probably their biggest commercial hit, because even with Lacrimosa and Bitoku, having great appeal to board gamers, I think this one, because it's quicker to play, easier to learn, and still gives you that great crunchiness and thinkiness, I think it will be a massive success for them. What do you reckon, Conor?
Yeah, I mean, its theme is, or its setting
non-existent.
I mean, it could be anything. It could be whatever. You could have been moving people through train stations. You could have been, and you could argue, even like, as much as I love the setting of Bitoku, the theme, like, it's the same thing. Like, it's great art or whatever, but like you don't feel like you're, summoning spirits or whatever. It's just sort of point salady, but that's not a knock on it. It's more just saying you've got a great game that is extra crunchy, like you said, with a very small footprint, both on the table and time-wise. I think it's got plenty of replayability because each of the dice placement sections are randomized both in game and at the start of the game. So depending on what color icon is placed in that row will determine which dice you can use to activate that. Yeah. That then affects bonuses because you might get a white die bonus they were red. Some people said they were orange. I apologize for all the colorblind people because it looked red to me, and I'm not colorblind. So, and then black, and there's all those, all right, so what's going to go there? And then even in game, and I think we kind of all agreed that the most interesting part was there's certain sections, and Dana talked about this last week. I'm pretty sure when she sizzled it, the dice placement and the powers or the placement spots in the the bottom 2 rows of the castle are cards, and you can take those cards. So it's like, well, I was going to play that. I was going to go to that section. But, Def, you have already gone there. You've taken the castle action and you've taken that card. And now the only place I can go to activate that without having to pay, an exorbitant price with what we call the Dolmio, the Dolmio tokens. They're called Daimyo, but the Daimyo, like the Japan, we would call them
the
Dolmio,
orange
like
things.
the lotus.
If you get too many, do you get the Dolmio grin?
That's what Harry said. It's like you can't have more than 5, otherwise you have the Dolmio grin. For those of you who aren't,
only Australians.
I know it's true, but if you'll know. Anyway, it is. It's really cool. I liked having. It's like I want this action all to myself. I'm going to take it, and you can have it there for as long as you want until you want to replace that card. Then you get the bonus for your lantern action, which is really cool too. Yeah, it had so much going on and so many decisions for such a small game. Like you said, crunchy is the best word to describe it. I always thought I was clever trying to take the lowest or the highest low dice so I could get the bonus lantern action. I've outsmarted you and Harry. But once again, I never had. There was a reason why you'd left them there for me to take because it was not very efficient. And I ran out of so many resources. I couldn't believe it because at the start I felt like I was very resource rich. And by the end I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that combo. I can't do that, which is cool. Makes me want to play it again and get better at the system and learn how to use my resources properly.
Yeah, for sure. Dan, have you played this? Yeah.
No, I haven't. I did see it at Melbourne Game Day. Joe from our community I think he taught it a couple of times, and it looks nice. But no, I know nothing about it outside of what you guys have just explained.
I think Joe taught it at Joe taught it at Melbourne Game Day. So it was good. Thanks, Joe, for inviting me to the teach.
He taught on one of the Gameway premium gaming tables as well. Nice.
Yes, Flash as.
Very good. Any other games you guys want to talk about, or should we progress to our sizzles?
Speaking of, I just want to mention this because I have to give a shout out to Amy and Maggie of Thinker Thema fame because they very kindly, for the umpteenth time, taught someone, i.e. me, a game that is on Kickstarter at the moment and it will probably be delivering around next year, and that is Critter Kitchen. And if you've played Flamecraft or know about Flamecraft and you liked Flamecraft, I think you would be very keen on this game because it's set in the same world. The art is by, I've got it, Sandara Tang, I believe their name is. So Sandara Tang, who also did the art for Flamecraft, which was kind of like Andrew Bosley's art for Everdell, like a massive selling point. But this game is really cool. I'd never played Flamecraft. It was very tempting and it looks very pretty. This one is a super light programming game. So you've got a set of cards and then these locations that have ingredients. So you're playing as chefs who are trying to make certain dishes to score points. And at the end of the first 6 rounds, we'll call it, you're going to try and make as many of these dishes as you can, and they will score based on the quality of your ingredients. But the rub here is that you all pick where you're going at the same time, and there's only limited numbers of ingredients at those places. And one of the places is the soup, and I don't know why. Like, soup is just a funny word to me. I don't know if it's like because of Seinfeld, the soup Nazi or whatever. But
soup for you.
Yeah, that's what. But you could always get soup, and I think it was just we said soup so often it just became like even funnier to me. But the really cool thing is
say a word over and over again that actually loses its meaning, and it just sounds
that's right, and it's just like noise. I mean, which all words are, right? But you know what I mean. But it's really cool because what happens is you go somewhere. And they're like your errand runners. So you have a mouse, a lizard, and like a boar, like a pig. And the mouse always gets to pick first, but can only take 1 ingredient. The lizard goes second, but can take 2. And then the boar always goes last, but can take 3. The thing is, though, is that 90% of the time, unless you have outsmarted everyone else, you are not going to get all 3 of your ingredients. So it's kind of like trying to be greedy, but you can't. You very rarely will get them all unless you go somewhere like the Chef's Academy, which is where all the items get cast off. And then at the end of that round, they go to the soup van to become soup for the next turn. So sometimes there's stuff left over there. Yeah, it's reasonably lightly thematic. It's quite good in that process. But the end of the game is you are effectively trying to plate up with the highest quality ingredients that you can for a celebrity chef, a Gordon Ramsay of the animal world, really. And we had a kangaroo that your value of your ingredients would swap from 6 to 9 because it's, we're from down under. And Amy and Maggie did that in their own video. And then we also use it as well, which is fine. Like I was just grateful that they taught me the game. But it was really, really fun. At the end of the game, I just said it was awesome. I would definitely play it again. It's not really my cup of tea in terms of something I would get out and play. But if I had a copy, I'd play it with my family. It seems like a great family weight game. We had a lot of laughs because it's like, oh, you dogged me. And me and Joe were, cursing each other, even though we were getting in our own ways and stuff like that. Yeah, so really, really fun with a couple of little things like you can get these trainee chefs that have special powers. And yeah, it was cool. Loved, and the art's changed from when I saw, because I played like a kind of quasi prototype, but even then it was so good. It is they're very talented Sandara Tang with their art, and it's just looking like something that's really cool. So if you're interested, it's still at Kickstarter. It's still on Kickstarter at the moment, and of course, Amy and Maggie have done a video on their Thinkathema channel. If you wanted to check that out, and of course, they do a great job, and they did an excellent job because Amy started to teach, and then Maggie sort of took over because Amy got whisked away to do something else.
I've played rival restaurants, which always seems to be a traumatic experience for me. my youngest daughter loves it, so we still play it, and I don't mind it. But that initial segment that you mentioned, the chefs go shopping and they try to get the ingredients they want. It's the same situation there in rival restaurants. And it's one part of the game that I absolutely despise. I really don't like it. And it's also, in rival restaurants, it kind of happens real time as well. So it's a part of the game that it just doesn't sit well with me.
Not your thing. So if there's nothing there and you haven't taken... there's a rule about taking soup. Yeah, so soup can act as a wild ingredient for your dish. So you can either take there's like a minestrone, like a super good soup, super good soup.
I think a lot of people say
soup. You're doing it already.
See, it doesn't mean anything. It's just noise coming out of... That's how most people probably think when I speak. It's just noise. Stop making noise. But yeah, so if you miss out on something, there is room for you to get to potentially make up for that if you haven't gone already. The other cool thing is that and I'll be quick because I do want to talk about our sizzles because one of them is very exciting. In fact, two of them are all three are very exciting. Is that... the chef has randomized effects, and you can spend these rumors, one of each type, to secretly find out what those effects are. And you can always go back. So once you spend that rumor, you can check it as many times as you want. So when we played, the wine value was doubled. And so what I got to do is I got to make a spicy wine, and then I doubled that spicy wine. So the point value for mulled wine. The point value ended up being about 36, and other people were scoring like 6 for their wine. So that was kind of something, because I found out the rumor, I was able to go hard and get a high quality, I'm going to say it's like a Sub Blanc, because it looked like a white wine. And then I could get the spice that let me, so a spicy Sub Blanc. Those sommeliers will probably know better than me. But yeah, like I said, great game, great art. So if you're looking for a bit of fun to play with family, I can only recommend that.
Excellent. So, moving on to our sizzles for this week. I see interesting.
I'm torn between letting you go first and eating up all our time, or me and Dan going first, and then you can have whatever's left.
I'll let you guys decide who goes first. How about that?
No, I don't mind. I honestly don't mind.
Well, let's start with you, Dan.
Oh, all right then. Let's. I'll take the new ball, as Connor would say. My sizzle this week is a new game from friend of the show, Matt Dunstan, and also Dave Neal. And again, this was courtesy of VR. Matt Dunstan was actually at PAX, and he was teaching this game, Perspectives. That's his new game. And we were lucky enough to get the copy that he was teaching. And so now it's part of the Melbourne Game Library. And I've been playing it with my wife. And it is exactly my kind of game. So Matt Dunstan and Dave Neal both have pedigree of escape room style games. So Matt Dunstan's famously done a bunch of the Echoes games and also the Adventure series. Dave Neal has done some of the Unlock games. He's also done a couple of stories, I think, or a couple of cases on Sherlock Holmes, the consulting detective. He also did the Animals of Baker Street, which is one that I've talked about on the show before, that I've played with my family. So what Perspectives is it's a series of case files. So there's 3 cases that come in the game. Each case is broken into 4 acts. And and so each act comes in. Well, each case comes in like this envelope, this really thick, heavy envelope, and each act is kind of like a mini little manila folder. And on the outside, it tells you what the story is, and on the reverse side, it poses a question. And then inside the manila folder is a series of 12 postcards. And so unlike an escape room or an escape game or an unlock game where you go through in sequence, in this game, you distribute all 12 postcards right from the get-go. And so if you're playing 2 players, you would take postcard 1, give the other person postcard 2, then you take postcard 3, other person takes postcard 4. If you're playing with 3 players or 4 players or 6 players, everyone only gets 2 or 3 or maybe 4 postcards. And everyone's got to work together to read the postcards, look at the pictures, try and work out what's on there, and then communicate with each other as to what's on there. I kept thinking while we were playing this would be a great team building game if you're looking for something to do with all your workmates. And you're in a particular team where everyone needs to communicate really, really well with each other. It's a lot of fun. The first case is around an art piece called the Nagaraja. I think it was called. That's how we were pronouncing it anyway. But you're allowed to decide between the group, between the 2 of us, or between whoever's playing, one postcard that can go face up in the middle of the table that everyone can see.
Okay.
And then outside of that, if you want to share other postcards, then that will come off your points at the end. Because at the end, once you think you've worked out and you think you've answered the 3, maybe 4 or 5 questions that are on the back of the manila folder, you open the folder up and it's got a really detailed explanation of how things went down, and okay, this key feature on this postcard links to this key feature, and it's just so well done. It's just so clever. And there was a couple of little things that Jen and I on the very first case that we worked out just by explaining, okay, so I've got this on my I've got one postcard where it's got the artwork and it's got the this and that. And I was sorry, what did you just say? I was like, well, I've got one that's a bit different, because we were trying to work out one of the story goes, and I'm not really spoiling anything because it's the very first case, but there's an art piece that moves from museum to museum. And then when it gets to the 3rd museum, it's weighed and they realize it's a counterfeit. So you're trying to work out at what point during the last year was the counterfeit swapped in. by looking at different inventory statements and other little clues and photos. It was on display here in this room, and then it got moved to here, and here's the receipt for the shipping container, and it weighed this amount, and it was signed off by this person, and then that case, once you work that out, the case then goes on with future acts, and you're trying to work out who it was, and then what their motivation was, and it ended up telling this quite well-rounded story. Interestingly, the introduction to getting the hang of how this all works is actually done on the box itself. So what you do is you lift off the lid, and then around the outside of the box, there's some little pictures, and it looks quite insignificant, but what you do is you put it on the table so that everyone, if you're playing with 4 people, everyone sees a different face of the box. And then again, you're basically just sharing information. What can you see on your side? What can you see on your side? And there'll be a time. Okay, well, that time is actually half an hour before my time, and it's all about the theft of something from an apartment building. And then once you've worked that out, you actually put the lid back on, and then there's some more information on the lid that was there the whole time that you didn't actually sort of pay much attention to, and you're trying to work out who committed the crime based on what you saw around the outside, which you now can't see because you put the lid back on, and then you're all working together to see with this new information and put it together. And so it's just such a clever introduction. It's just, I was constantly amazed at the cleverness of this game.
It's great to be able to see them using, even the box of the game for gameplay purposes. We've seen this a couple of times now, and that's really great. How long do these cases take?
I'd say probably half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah, I mean, maybe less, depending on how quickly you switch on, because you're only limited by your own communication. So you could go through this 12 postcards when I played with Jen, obviously, when he had 6 each. And it's done in a way that obviously card 6 and card 7, they go together so that no one person will ever have them.
Yeah.
So you need to work together and communicate. So depending on how your communication skills are, and it's funny because we learnt from the first act a few things that we missed. Was like, okay, I did actually see that, but I didn't think it was relevant, so I didn't.
Yeah, sure.
So then when we played the second act, we probably paid more attention to some of the finer details and tried to we amped up our communication. So thanks, Matt Dunstan, you got me and my wife communicating. We don't have to do therapy anymore. But yeah, it was just super clever. We really, really enjoyed it. In fact, we played it in bed. We just went to bed with a cup of tea, and we had some snacks, and we just divvied up the postcards and then just played it. It was great fun.
Is this one of these systems that you think will now become a series of games? Like,
it wouldn't surprise me. It's very, very easy sort of framework to then bring out future cases. And the sky's the limit in terms of how creative those cases can be. And like I said, their pedigree. I mean, talking about Dave Neal sort of writing some of the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective.
Well, it sounds like that when you talked about
they're pretty involved. So
getting points deducted for that. I mean, that's what happens with Sherlock Holmes. Is if you go to Sherlock, you get points deducted from, or however long you take, that gets deducted from your overall score. I'd be interested to see. Because we've been so lucky to talk to guys like Matt Dunstan and various other board game designers and developers who came up with the idea to use the box as an introductory, as a prologue to the game. Because that's from my conversations. Not with Matt per se, but other game designers. It's like, no, I just make the game. I make this part and then I send it off, and I don't see it until I get like talked to or whatever, consulted. But once the game system is there, once it's bare bones, it's sent off. So I'd be interested to see, if that was always something that Dave or Matt wanted to do from the beginning, or if that's something that someone in the game developer or someone in the publishing company was like, oh no, we should do this. So
it's ridiculously smart outside of the puzzle itself that's on there, but just the fact that it plays into the fact that you put a box in the middle of a table and not everyone can see every side. So everyone has a unique perspective on what's around the box.
What's happening.
That's just so stupidly clever. Yeah.
The other thing is how you said, "Oh, we didn't know if that was important." Probably what bugs me the most about these, the detectives or whatever, is it's how much do I have to look into some of these things, like what's important and what's not important. And I know for some people that's part of the fun, is deducing that and saying, "Oh, I knew that was a red herring or it wasn't important or whatever." But for me, because I'm a bit like a dog with a bone, it's like, no, I found this. This has to be important. And then you input the date in, and it doesn't mean anything in or you look it up on the database for detective, and it's like, nope, not important at all.
That's part of the fun of creating these puzzles as well, is to put a few key details in the background, and then so that people learn, okay, you got to pay attention to the background, and then for future cases, you have red herrings in the background, because now that you've shifted their attention to, so you put the clues in the foreground, and then you can just completely mess with people. I think that's part of the fun as well, because it really did. There was something in the background that Jen didn't sort of take much notice of, and then when we compared the postcards openly at the end, we went, "Oh, okay, that is actually that. It's just this is a close up, and that was it, sort of way back there." And so then we paid extra special attention to some of those little things as we played the subsequent cases. But it was great. Really, really enjoyed it. So that's Perspectives, and I don't know if it's available now. I know it's on pre-order at various stores, including our friends at Advent. Yeah, it's particularly if you're into those sort of unlock exit style games. This is a completely different sort of take on those sorts of games, because you're not working through, okay, card 6 and 7, and then once you've solved it, then check card 8 or card 9.
Sure. Yeah,
you get every card right from the outset, and then you got to work out how it all fits together.
And you don't mess with the components like you do with the exit games, right? It's reusable afterwards.
Yeah, so you just put it back in the folder and pop it back in the envelope, and it's good to go again. So, yeah.
Very good. Excellent. That sounds good. And to be honest, I have played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and I thought it was a bit too much. It was less of a game and more of an actual investigation kind of thing, because you had to infer a lot of things. And so I kind of, thought that what you just described would be a bit of a simplified version of that. So I'd be keen to try it. Well, that was Perspectives. Connor, what have you got for us?
I have the game that I taught at the Melbourne Game Day. So, first of all, thank you to Nelly, to Kevin, and to Jono for putting up with my half-baked teach. And that is a Mercurial. So my teach does not represent the quality of this game, because it is a very, very good game. It's very enjoyable and very well made. So please let me put it. This was another game given to us from Good Games Publishing. But as per usual, I would only talk about this if I really enjoyed it. So it was given by Good Games Publishing and created by David Goh. So that's Goh. In Mercurial, you are playing as wizards. Everyone loves to play as wizards. Mm-hmm. You're playing as wizards who are trying to heal or destroy different aspects of the world that have effectively gone through this cataclysm. So you can either, like I said, heal, or you can destroy, like what's happening. So but the game itself is a dice and card game. And what you're doing is, at the start of the game, you roll your die, and they are your elements. And you have 4 basic elements that you have all the time in games. You've got fire, water, earth, and thunder. Then you also have aether, and you have void. And void acts as a wild, but not in the way you think. It's kind of like this unrefined wild that you have to take an action to then convert into the element that you want. So the way that the game works, it's a competitive game. You can also play it cooperatively, but we decided to play it competitively. And what you're doing is you're competing for these heroics, which are effectively the scoring cards. And the way that you score these cards is you need to create what's either called restore or ruin. And these are the main power. This is the power that you create on your turn. Now, when you're playing this game, think of it as if there's two main phases or two main choices that you have to make on your turn. Either you're building up power or you're going to spend all that power, which is your spell combinations. So if you're deciding to, and what you will do in the first couple of turns of the game, to build up your spell combination, your power, it's got this really cool system called take and play. So in what it's called take and play, because you can have 4 choices of taking. So you can either take a card that lets you change your die face or change something that you have. Lets you take a spell card and put it into your spell combo if you can pay for it with the results. You can take a card from the spell column and then take an acuity token, which you can use to help you cast spells later. Or you can take all of your cards that you've played back into your hand. And then you get to play a card from your hand. So these, I'm actually going to call them something wrong. Let's call them affixes for the time being, because I've been playing some Diablo and there's affixes in that. But what affixes are is they are the way that you can change die results. They might let you take an extra turn. They might give you extra acuity, which can be used to buy spells if you want. And this is where the kind of the combo and the card play comes into it, because you can only in your turn take and play one card. You're looking at playing these affixes, these alternating cards, to try and to try and extend your turn or to give you more actions. Because what you're then trying to do is build up your spell combo so you can either produce enough restore or ruin to then take one of those heroics. And depending on the number of players you're playing with, these heroics you might only play to 3 to 4 or to 5. So I think because we played it at 4 players, the first person that took 3 heroics, they ended the game and everyone else got to cast what was in their spell combo after that. Throw in the fact that you can have asymmetric characters, so each of the characters can use might have different masteries or things like that. And they start off with different, like these affix cards in your hand. They're not called affix. It's going to bug me. I'll remember the moment we switch off Zencaster. I'll remember what they're called, or I could have done my due diligence and looked it up. But what you're effectively doing is on your turn, like I said, you're deciding if you're building up power or casting. And when you cast, it's really, really cool, because what you have is you have these effectively strength spells, which then tell you, okay, you're going to create this much restore or potentially this much ruin. And then you have link spells, which then might multiply it based on some values that you have. So you can get what's called these sigils, which then might multiply the number of the amount of thunder that you produce, or you might create a certain amount of thunder value, or based on the number of cards in your spell column. So you want to have more spells in your spell combo to be able to produce more restore or ruin. Now, there's kind of like this cool thing where it's quite thematic, because generally the amount of ruin, generally the amount of ruin that you have to spend is less, and the amount of restore is more. Because if you think about it, it's way easier just to break something down and get rid of it than it is to take the time to build it back up. So, the amount of restore and ruin for each of these heroics, and they will have both values, but you still get the same amount of victory points once you take them. There's also this really, really cool system called equilibrium. So if on your generally what you want to do is you want to sort of lean into either restore or ruin. But if you create the equal amount of restore or ruin, you create what's called mist. And mist, so for example, the base level of mist is if you create 6 or 7 restore and ruin together, you have effectively created equilibrium and you've created 7 mist. But that 7 mist will now get you way more restore or ruin than you would previously. You effectively sum the values together. So you might make 12 restore or 12 ruin, which will then give you way more points for you to take some of the heroics. So it's a really, really cool system where you're then choosing, okay, do I just want to lean into a restore? Do I just want to lean into ruin? or am I going to try and get equal? And both Nelly and Kevin were able to do that once each. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad that someone was able to do it in the game, because you then get an extra token which lets you have a free action. If you like games, and because I've played a lot of card games, but if you like card battlers or Magic the Gathering or anything that's quick, or games you can play, 1v1, there might even be a team variant that you can play. This game is definitely for you. Not only that, it is pretty as all heck. Anybody that walked past the table is like, damn, I don't know what's going on, but it looks good, and it does. The art is sensational.
Yeah, the cards are gorgeous.
Cool. Yeah, the dice are so cool. Really, really clear. Speaking of colorblind before, super colorblind friendly, because each of the icons are clearly different. The choices that you have, and we were kind of just like going, well, why wouldn't we just take spells each time and then be able to take those heroics? But once someone takes a really big value heroic, you're then playing catch up. And because you only play to 3 in a 4-player game, it was like, oh my goodness, I can't take. If I've taken one heroic already, I have to make sure my next one is high scoring. So I'm going to start taking those affix cards to then try and extend my turn next turn. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm really excited to play this again. I'm going to try and teach it to my brothers over Christmas time, because I think they will love it. I think it's right up our alley in terms of, like I said, card battling. The theme is cool, the setting's cool. There's a teensy bit of take that, but really you're kind of, the only thing you're competing for is the heroics and the cards and the tableaus. But once you do that, there's not really that much. So you can kind of, as long as you're a little bit flexible in your plans, you can sort of run your own race. But yeah, so if you're into that type of stuff, definitely give it a look. And I believe it may be available for purchase now. But like I said, we were very lucky that Good Games gave us a copy early.
Have you checked out the solo yet, Connor? Or
I have
how
not.
It works?
Because, if perchance you wanted to borrow it, Dan, you're more than welcome to check that out. So, no, I haven't, because I've just, in terms of solo card games, I've got so many of them.
You have friends, so you don't need to play solo. They're like me and Mitch.
But none of them, they just use me for my money and good looks, so I don't know.
Sounds very exciting.
It
gives me vibes from both ends and dice chucking something. I'm not going to say too many bones, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And initially I was
looking
a bit
at
hesitant.
the art. It's very inviting.
Because I was like, oh, am I just rolling dice? But it's the dice are your resources. So it's like I roll the die. Oh, and that's probably what I should say. So in order to take cards into your spell combo, you have to assign the dice. And then once you've cast your spells, you get to roll all your dice again. And then you have the opportunity to flip them. So Aether and Void are on opposite sides. Fire and water are on opposite sides, and then thunder and earth are on opposite sides. So if you have an earth one, there is an ability to maybe just flip it over to the other side because you want thunder, and so on and so forth. So that's all available for you to do. So there's mitigation, right? And it's about choosing. It's not, oh no, I had to get a sum of 24 and I can't get that, so my turn's over. It's really about using those affix cards to try and flip cards around or get an extra turn, and then casting those big, awesome spells.
Very good. Sounds amazing. I definitely want to give it a try now after that description, if I'm honest with you. You got me all hyped up.
Ooh, yeah, we love hype.
So that was Mercurial.
Mm-hmm.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it, he's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now.
All right, Def, come on. You champing at the bit for nearly an hour. Hit us with it.
Well, people that are part of our community, I mean, in Discord specifically, as I haven't posted about this on Facebook yet, I was too busy playing the game. They know that I've been playing a game for the past month, almost nonstop. And it's one of these situations where you kind of have so much expectation from a game where you know at best it's going to try and meet that expectation. And in this case, this game has surpassed the expectations, which doesn't happen often. So I'm very, very excited to talk about this game. This is Voidfall from Mind Clash Games. It's a...
Sorry.
So this was delivered to backers the last couple of months. I think we were probably among the last to get it in Australia, but it's a design by Nigel Buckle and David Terzi and published by Mind Clash Games. And our friend Aeon O'Toole has done the graphic design, artwork, and iconography, which, if I'm honest, I think it's probably among the best I've seen, especially for a game that is as complex as this. So I'm going to do something that I don't usually do when I talk about heavy Euros, and that's start from the theme. Because I think Mind Clash Games have hit a gold mine with this. And the setting of the game is that there is this sort of galactic expansion that the human race has achieved, and that happened through some massive technological breakthroughs and visions and sort of leadership of the Novarks, which is like a great house. And it turns out that as soon as humanity reached every sort of part of the universe that they wanted to reach, then it turns out that this sort of capacity that this house that was leading everybody had wasn't their own. It was actually given to them by this cosmic being from a different dimension called the Voidborn. And they had corrupted their minds, and the whole idea was to give them the capabilities and the technology ideas to advance the human race and populate much of the galaxies. And then as soon as they've reached the size that is devourable, then the Voidfall event happened, which basically meant that rifts opened between our world and the Voidborn's world, and the Voidborn came in and took over big parts of humanity by corrupting their minds, and even manifested in a physical way and started, corrupting parts of the infrastructure and ships and stuff like that. And so the game is about it's an empire builder, or I mean, it was pitched at the start as a 4X Euro game. To be honest with you, I think none of these definitions matter much when I think about the game. It is a heavy Euro game at heart, but the purpose of the game is to try and develop your civilization, develop your house, and clear the corruption from that you have from the Voidborn. The game is played over 3 cycles, and each cycle you have a galactic event at the start that changes a few things, that puts some special rules, that maybe also shows you what kind of unique scoring might happen at the end of the cycle. But it also denotes the number of actions or rounds that will happen in that cycle. And this is usually something like 4 or 5 or maybe even 6. So in the whole game, you would have something between 12 to 15 or 16 rounds. And in each round, every player has control over one of the 14 houses in the game. So there's 14 different houses that have different technologies and different civilization tracks and stuff like that. And you have 9 focus cards, and the focus cards are basically they almost represent decades of activity of your civilization. So you, on your turn, you play one of these of these 9 focus cards, and there's 3 actions listed on each one of these cards. And on your turn, you take 2 of these. There is a way to take a third action, the third action on the card, but usually you will take 2 of the 3. But they represent sort of the in bigger scale of what you've been doing. You know, you build infrastructure, you increase your financial capability, you work on your resources, or you try to get rid of Voidborn corruption from your house. In the middle of the table, this is a massive game, you have the map that is built by the scenario that you've chosen. There's different scenarios. So the game can be played competitively, or it can be played cooperatively and or solo. And you get the full experience no matter which way you play it. So that's a massive thing for me. And the map is made of these sectors that at the start of the game, each player that participates in the game has a home sector for their house, and then a neighboring sector, which is almost like a supporting sector. And each sector has a space for a population die that you put down. And the bigger the number, the more the population is there. But also, almost every other sector in the galaxy or in the map that you play has a corruption token underneath the die. And this is really interesting how it comes up, because they've made these orange, spiky, real, interesting looking tokens.
I've seen them. Yeah, they look cool.
Dice fit into them. And so that's the population of that sector, but it's corrupted by the Voidborn. And in these other sectors, the Voidborn have fleet power. And this is a game-changing approach in terms of galactic warfare or space warfare, if you like, in my view, because what they've done is they've taken the approach that, the size of the fleet doesn't necessarily represent, how many ships you have or it's not like that. So the way you position and you deploy fleet power on the board is you have these little tokens, or if you have the Galactic edition of Voidfall, you have these little miniatures that sit on these stands. But in both cases, at the bottom of these tokens or miniatures, there's 3 little spots to put your fleet power cubes. And each house, each player starts with 14 of these. And when you deploy fleet power, it takes a bit of time to wrap your head around what that means. It's not that you have more ships there, but more fleet power means that you have more commanding capabilities of your fleets. So, because remember, the game's scale is in decades, and each card represents progression of your civilization for a few decades. And I find that fascinating because that allowed them to change the way combat is done in this game from anything we've ever seen before, in space games, to something pretty unique, and that is zero luck combat. And the way this works is, and I'm going to spend a minute talking about this because it's a significant part of the game, even though this is not really a war game. And most of the time, what you're trying to do is you're trying to invade sectors that have Voidborn fleet power in them, because you're trying to get rid of the corruption there. The reason you're trying to do that is because each sector has slots for guilds. The game calls it guilds. They're these rectangular, round-ish cog-looking tokens, and they represent one of few different resources in the game. So in the game, you have food, you have materials, you have energy, you have credits, you have science, and all of these you track in a different way. You have like this tracker that you use. And so, for instance, if I control a sector that has pure population and it has a banking guild on it, and the population is 4, then my production for credits goes up by 4. And so then when you actually do a production action, you're going to produce whatever yield a 4-level production of credits gets you. But the different resources, they don't all get you the same yield from the same level. So if you increase your food production by 5, it might produce you 4 food. If you increase your credits production by 5, it might only produce you 2 credits because credits are wild. So the game has this, comprehensive resource management system that's quite important. And you get expansion of that by invading Voidborn sectors and taking control of them. At the same token, before I get into combat, is these agenda cards that you take from a display and you play. And these agenda cards are the heart of the scoring system of the game. So at its heart, the game is an empire building Euro where you adjust your score conditions with every round that passes. So you have, under your house mat, you have 4 slots, and you take agenda cards and you place them there. And those agenda cards, if they're not corrupted, they can score you points at the end of each cycle. And the conditions might say, hey, if you have, if your food production is at 8 at least, then you gain 7 points. Or for every 2 pure sectors that you control, you gain 5 points. Things like that. And so you start building towards these cards that give you these scoring conditions, but there's nothing keeping you from changing them during the game. And so going back to the combat is this system that they've developed where they even have an app for it now, because it seems quite simplistic at the start. It basically says, hey, you just count up your initiative, and then whoever has the highest initiative removes 1 fleet power from the opponent. Then that opponent, if they still have fleet power in the sector, they retaliate and remove 1 of your fleet power. Then you recalculate your initiative and do the same thing. Before you do that, there is an approach step where it is a separate step to the combat. So, for instance, if you invade sectors that have sector defenses, they're these triangular tokens that shoot at everything that invades, then they take out some of the fleet power before the actual combat begins. And you kind of look at that at the first tutorial when you play it, and you go, okay, I get it. It seems quite straightforward. I don't know why they would need an app for that. And then the heart of the whole game is these technologies that you go and research. And these technologies not only bring different types of ships and fleet power in the game, but they change the way some of these things interact with them. So some of the technologies might get you 1 shield during combat, and some of these technologies might allow you to have more initiative than the actual number of the tokens that you have, or the cubes that you have there, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, one of these invasion actions becomes this complex puzzle of, okay, I can calculate the outcome before I invade, but that might take a few minutes to do.
In most occasions, I'm quite happy we don't record video because of the state of how I look. But I wish we could have had a video for how Def has been explaining this to me and Dan, and how expressive he's been. Yeah. And you keep kind of looking to the side because you're trying to work out the thing you do, and you're thinking of what's the best way to say this. You keep doing that, and it's like, I know there's all these thoughts going around in your brain, and you're trying to streamline it.
Look, before I should have said at the start that I got this game on, I think, October 7th, and I played it 11 times. So I played it on average once every 3 days, and we're talking, this is a massive game that takes hours to play, and it's not quick to set up or pack away either. So, that says a lot. I don't remember when that last happened to me. So yeah, it's been amazing.
It was probably another Mind Clash game that it last happened to you.
It could have been, yeah. It might have been Anachrony potentially, or
So have you
Perseverance.
been playing this with the solo campaign?
I've been playing all sorts of configurations. I've played it a 2-player a few times. I've played it a 1-4-player game that was pretty epic, and I've played it quite a lot solo.
Mm-hmm. And can I ask the co-op and competitive as well?
Yeah, so I've only played competitively with other people. The co-op is basically the same game as the solo mode, just with
Def doesn't do co-op.
No, I don't mind co-op. In this game, I think it actually solves a problem that you may have with people that don't want to, engage in combat against each other. Although this game doesn't invite that. It's more of a Cold War situation, because you know the outcome of a combat before you go in. What you're trying to do is you're trying to say, if I have this amount of these fleet power here and that amount of that fleet power there, those sectors are safe because the people that are around me can't actually win these combats. So, it's more of that balance rather than the combat itself. And at the end of the day, the different scenarios that exist in the scenario book, they have different levels of, the game calls it aggression, like how aggressive the scenarios are. But all they are is that they're less smaller maps, or they have wormholes leading from one side of the galaxy to the other quicker. The players get quicker, closer to each other, rather than, inviting specifically combat. And there is a military way of sort of progressing and scoring points, but there's also a, economic civilization way. So each house, you have on your map 3 civilization tracks that you go up, and you gain different abilities and bonuses as you go up. But towards the end of these tracks, you get a massive amount of influence, which is the points in the game. I think that it's obvious that this game is a big, complex, heavy Euro, but I do think that despite the fact that it has, it knows what it is and it sells itself that way. And so, I think it's trying to appeal to a certain niche of our sort of hobby, with people that love these types of games. I think it will be very successful because the work that they've done to streamline the game is amazing. For a game that is this complex, the outcome is absolutely phenomenal. And that is, I guess, a combination of them refining the mechanics and streamlining rule sets and all of that, and Aeon O'Toole's work in terms of the iconography and how everything is represented in the game. It all makes perfect sense. And I remember, I've played these games all the time, and I was quite intimidated when I started learning this, but then the tutorial is great. And after the tutorial, I remember I think I had to go back and look at the rulebook when I started learning the solo modes and the solo modes rules, and that was pretty much it. So it's one of those things where, it has what David Terzi calls the big scary wall of icons. But if you get through that, then it works really, really well. And I have to take my hat off to Mind Clash Games, because they went from, the big pile of expansions, which I call Anachrony, which is still a fantastic game, but it has so many different expansions and, so much, how does this work with that, and what should I do next, to Perseverance, which I thought was a massive step forward in terms of streamlining the whole experience and have a single thing in the box, which is still 2 separate games, to Voidfall, that honestly, guys, it feels like they've specifically and deliberately taken things out of the game to make it more streamlined. This is how the game feels. It feels like you cannot point at a single thing that is, should not be there. And to me, that is evolution of, a publisher or, a group of designers that are producing these types of heavy euros. I couldn't be happier with the game. It's been an absolute blast to play, and
Geez, I want to hope so with all you've played. Imagine if you had that many players and you go, nah, it's crap.
I was just hoping it would get better, but it still hasn't after 11 plays.
Oh, needs a bit more time in the oven.
So what's your selling point? Because I mean, it sounds great, but I also look on BGG and it's got a weight of 4.59, which is not uncommon for a Mind Clash game. But what's your selling point for this for someone who's never tried a Mind Clash game before? Would this be easy to pick up?
It depends. I mean, if you haven't played a Mind Clash game before, then I would ask if you've played any other heavy euros like a Vitaly Serta game or, I think this is the level that we're talking in terms of complexity and depth. So it is going to be a bit of a hurdle for a lot of people, I feel. And I do think that, that will be represented in terms of how much uptake this game has. But in my opinion, it is by far the best game Mind Clash games have produced in terms of gameplay and mechanics and theme and how it all ties together. And I think because of the system that they've created, I think we're going to see a lot of fan-generated content coming the next few years. There's already a massive piece of work that some user on Board Game has produced with a campaign that they've created where they add story and evolution from one mission to the next, because you can create different scenarios by simply changing the configuration of the space sectors, and each sector has a different ability and they do different things and things like that. So yeah, Voidfall has been a very pleasant surprise. Even though I was expecting the game, it was my most anticipated game of 2023, it still delivered above what I was expecting, and that just blew me away. I was not expecting that. So anybody that has a love for heavy euros and wants to sort of dive into something epic, Voidfall is the answer.
Interesting comment. Let's circle back to that comment come into the show, I think.
In a minute.
That's something important. Yeah.
All right. Well, that finishes up for our sizzles. And before we go to the question of the board, a couple of quick announcements. So the Nerds of the West are doing a fundraiser on Saturday, November the 18th at 9 a.m. Western time or 12 p.m. Eastern time. They're live streaming the entire Ticket to Ride Legends of the West. So they're raising money for Game On Cancer, Cure Cancer, which is direct funding for cancer research. If you donate a few dollars, then you'll go into the draw to win a copy of Ticket to Ride Legacy, and there's other gifts as well. As far as we know, this is just for Australia and New Zealand, but if you want to support that cause, I would encourage you to watch the live stream. Check it out on Nerds of the West, both on Twitch and YouTube. The second thing we have to mention is that on the 15th of November, so only a couple of days after this episode goes live, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be releasing tickets for PlayCon, which is happening only a few months away now in Sydney in July.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it, guys. It's exciting.
So that's super exciting. If you are interested in attending that event, then jump on the tickets.
A few cool people there, that aren't normally in Sydney.
A few.
Oh, you're not going, Connor? And on our, I think we're going to be doing it on Facebook, but Mitch and Jules are going to be doing a live stream on Wednesday as well to answer any questions. Bit of an FAQ, so if anyone wants to jump on, has any questions, they'll be live. As tickets go on sale, they'll be there. Just the usual shenanigans from those two. But if anyone has any questions,
rat bags.
You can hit them up.
Yep.
Very good. So on to the question of the pod. Now, last week's question of the pod sparked a massive amount of discussion.
Need some ice cream or milk because it was spicy.
It had a massive amount of discussion, and we're not gonna.
Good one, Lauren.
Yeah.
I mean, it's recess, and she's already like turning the place upside down.
But the question was, how do you feel about paid reviews in board game content? So before we jump into reading a couple of the responses, I'm just going to put out something there that I was talking with Adrian yesterday, and I said, I think sometimes I can feel myself being a bit too sensitive about this because it's our hobby and we love it so much. And so you kind of don't associate money making with it, but at the end of the day, it's an industry like any other, and people should be able to make money from it. But obviously, there's a few caveats with that. So, Conor, do you want to read a couple of the responses that we've picked for this
Sure,
week?
and one of someone actually touches on that too, Def, so it's quite good. So Jamie Lawrence says, not a fan at all. The degradation of media integrity in our society is almost total. And the era of social media, rife as it is with misinformation and value-driven content selection, has rendered critical review null and void. Any post that uses the phrase null and void is good to me. Rainier says, some people who do a review may put a lot of effort and time into it. A proper review is based on multiple play and investigation analysis. Well, everybody needs to eat and drink. How can we expect that is all for free? I'm happy to get a good review and I don't have to pay for it or just be a patron. It is finally a matter of quality and how the reviews are done. It should be clearly distinguished between personal opinion and the review of the game. It should be visible if it is paid one or not. But we should not forget that some reviewers may not get paid but try to get a lot of attention for clicks, potentially on lowering the review quality. So finally, it is about money. There is no ideal world, black and white.
Yeah, a couple of approaches there. Dan, do you want to take us through a couple more?
Twitter, Jeffrey Allers said, it's really a paid promotion, not a review. Personally, I don't watch them as they all say the same generic things. Paying someone to present the rules or the gameplay, on the other hand, can be helpful. And on Instagram, Nana Battle said, if someone wanted to review us and then ask for money, it would not be a review in my mind. It'd be a paid sponsorship, legally speaking, and would need a disclaimer of some kind too. And it should be labeled as an unboxing and impressions video. It's all semantics at that point, and people just need full disclosure.
Yeah.
Look, some very good points there.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that was kind of the gist of most people. It was just all about transparency.
So, for the new question of the pod this week, we thought we use this person's animated sequence of handshaking and what else I was doing while I was describing Voidfall as an opportunity to ask you, which game have you binged and how much? Conor, do I even need to ask you? Or do I already know
What do you
the
think I
answer?
was going to say? What do you think I was going to say?
Arkham Horror, the card.
No, I wouldn't. So Arkham was a bit different because I played the first scenario and was so blown away, and then I went away to Japan, so I couldn't even binge it if I wanted to. I even looked at trying to take the cards, and I just thought it was too much. No, the one, and this one won't surprise you either, that comes to my mind. Okay, there's two. Can I do two because they're both kind of
go
one.
for it.
The first one is Marvel Champs. And the reason why I binged this is because I got heaps of content in the height of COVID. So in the room I'm in at the moment was also where I do my online classes from. And, I might have 50 minutes or whatever. And what I would do is I would have it set up on the floor. So I'd play scenarios on the floor. My Zoom call would go off or my Google Teams would go off. I'd jump back in my seat, do my teach, whatever to the kids, and then your kids good to go, cool, yep, that's fine. And then I go back to playing that on the ground, and I just played through the base heroes and some of the expansion content as well. But the other one,
what's the second?
is too many bones.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Similarly, it stays set up on my table. And I normally, like, I'm not great in the mornings. Like, I just want to get stuff done, get to work and start my day off. But it was even to the point where I was having turns before I went to work. So I was like having my breakfast, eating my cereal, moving, like that. Rolling dice and activating things. So that's, to me, that means that I, one, like, adore the game, and two, that it's proper binge worthy. I can't even go about my morning routine without having 1 or 2 turns.
Dan?
I knew what one of them was going to be. I had a quick look at my BG stats app to see what games I've been. See, I don't have the luxury of a actual gaming table. My gaming table for anything with a big footprint, like, you know, some of the games are in my top 10. Aeon's End, even Marvel. I could play here at my desk. Arkham Horror. I have to normally play it out in the living room, which means that that on the dining room table, which means it's going to be packed away before breakfast or what have you. However, I have played Hadrian's Wall. I have set it up here, and to the point where I've actually slid it across a little bit so I can set up my work laptop, and then just once I down tools at work, I just slide Hadrian's Wall back into place, and then just go. Because I got to the point where I was able to knock out a game in like 45 minutes, and I was just playing back to back to back to back. Particularly because I was trying to crack that 70 points for the solo campaign, and I was always just falling short. It's like, all right, we'll go again. If I got time to play one more, I've got time to go again, and I'll go again. And the other game that I've binged a lot recently, when it became available on Board Game Arena, and that's Turing Machine. I was just playing that back to back to back to back to back as well, because I loved the code cracking of it, the puzzle, and I would solve the puzzle, I'd solve the code, and then the machine actually beats me. It's like, all right, I'm going again, because I can beat this machine. And then I play it again. It's like, nope, I'm just like one move short of what the machine is. Like, all right, I'm going again. And if I have a look at BJ stats, there's like 10, 12 games in a row where I've just gone, right, I'm going to do it. So they're probably the 2 games that I've binged this year.
That is so good, though. Like, that is the essence of the hobby, isn't it? To get so carried away by something that it kind of almost disrupts your daily life.
It affects your life.
Yeah. Where I'm looking at the clock going, it's 1 a.m. I could probably knock out just one more game before I go to bed. And it's like, or it's already past midnight anyway. What's one more game going to hurt, you know? No. But then what happens is I go to bed. I go, right, it's late. I got to go to bed. But I'm going to bed, and my mind is still buzzing. Have you guys ever, on a separate tangent, but have you guys ever had board game dreams where you've played a game so often the time. That you go to bed and you dream about it? I was having Hadrian Wall dreams.
Just boxes. So many boxes. So many boxes.
Spreadsheets.
Civilian citizens.
Build
Where
the
do
wall.
I put the building?
Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's not about what we think, but what you, the community, think. We will post the question in the coming couple of days, and please let us know which game have you binged and how much. Tell us all the crazy stories about what games you've binged and how much you've played them. Well, moving to the final segment of Swearing an Oath, but before we do that, a quick patron shout out, and this week's shout out goes to Kim Brandis, Andrew Green, Chris Ingold, and Erica Wheeler. Thank you very much for your support. And if you want to support the podcast as well, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue. Sign up. We do exclusive Patreon podcasts there that we record just for our supporters. If you don't want to do that, then there's other ways to support the podcast. Leave us a star rating, a review on Apple Podcasts, or a star rating in Spotify. It helps us because it pushes the podcast and spreads the word around the world. On that note, I think we have a new review for Dan to read out. So if you have a review, if you leave a review, we promise we will at least try to get Dan to read it out. So there's a challenge.
People have taken that to mean let's stitch Dan up. So but this one is not. This one's a really lovely review from Bursty T. He says, loving the sizzle. Just a shout out, this is a great Aussie board game podcast, a good mix of reviews, gameplay outlines, and interviews with designers. Plus, I love a bit of banter. Check it out to get some sizzle in your board game podcast listening. What a great review. Thanks, Bursty T, for that. Really
that is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other than that, you can always find us in our Facebook community and our Discord community. You can come and hang out with the rest of the people hanging out there and play games, and also on our social media. Now, on to our last segment of swearing and oath. And very quickly get this out of the way. I will go first because not only did I not do my oath, but I sold the game that was meant to be my oath. I know, right?
Do it.
I know. So my oath was to play Zoo Tycoon. It is a first. You don't understand. Voidfall has taken over.
It's infected your brain, making you sell all the other games.
The funny thing is, I was telling my brother who's visiting in a few weeks that, hey, Voidfall's going to be coming in September, and so I'm not going to be playing any other games until Christmas. So kind of hurry up. And I was making a joke, because I knew Voidfall was going to come, and I'll probably try it, and I didn't actually expect that to happen. I actually played a joke, and it's actually happening. So I had a read of the rules, and just I did not gel with the feel of the game at all. I was still traumatized by Arc Nova and the success that it has. Not that I hated the game, but I'm not a massive fan of it, and so Zoo Tycoon found a new home and made way for more Voidfall plays in the coming weeks. So I completely and utterly failed in the most spectacular way.
It's not even redeemable.
It's not even redeemable. So, but a new oath has to come into play, right? And I know Dan just got his this morning, and I'm expecting to get mine on Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and that's none other than 20 Strong by Chip Theory Games. They're small card and dice game, so I'm very, very keen to play this solo, quick Chip Theory Games goodness. So that is my new oath. By the next time I'm on the podcast, I will have played all 3 decks, variations of 20 Strong.
Yeah.
There you go. Connor, want to go next?
No. No. So my oath was to play Dwarf Romantic, and I didn't get that done. Even though Dan's like, you can go play with those people at the Melbourne Game Day, and they were like, oh yeah, we've kind of nearly finished our campaign, so that was never going to happen. I have seen on further reading, it seems like a really good family game, so I think I'm actually going to save it and play it with my nieces that come to visit.
Very nice.
At Christmas time. So I will get it done. It'll just be I'll put it on the back burner and we'll play that, or maybe we'll play it with I might play it with Hannah. I'll see how I go, but. And look, I'll be 100% honest. This was always going to happen, but you were so passionate, Def, about Voidfall. I happened to fall into a copy, or if a copy fell into my hands. Stumbled onto it. So I'm hoping over the next couple of weeks before I'm on the podcast next that you can teach me how to play Voidfall, and then I can become addicted to Voidfall.
I can assist with this.
Yes, and I know that because the void has affected you, and it's going to affect me. Isn't that how it works?
That's it. That's how it works.
So as well as Dwarf Romantic, probably over Christmas time, I will learn and play Voidfall. It's still in shrink at the moment because I feel like once I open it, that's it.
Corruption will come out, takes over, end of day.
Yeah. So that's me.
Excellent, Dan.
Well, I have been knocking out my oaths.
Come on! You just now this isn't the norm now.
It isn't. You're right, because I had 3, if you remember, and I've taken it down to 1.
So we've still come up on top.
Yes.
So Conor and I failed.
I haven't done all 3, but I've done 2 out of my 3.
Come on.
You're in the poop the most because you sold your game. So at least I still have my game.
My shoulders are only so wide, guys. I can't carry you all the way to the end of this podcast. But 2 of my I did complete. So Run was the most recent one that I sworn. Run is the latest Tim Fowers game. So I backed the new version of Fugitive. And I also got a copy of Run. Now, Run's a really interesting game. It's strictly 2-player, similar to Fugitive in the fact that it's like a cat and mouse sort of hide and seek done. But it's done through movement on it's like a a 6x6 map, and the game itself comes with 4 double-sided maps. So there's 8 different cities. One of them's Perth, actually, which is kind of cool. I thought having an Australian city that wasn't sort of one on the East Coast. So shout out to all our Perth listeners. You're in a game. And then there was a freebie that came with the Kickstarter as well, so which made it extended it out to 10. But one person plays the runner, and one person plays the dispatch, and you control a helicopter that goes around the map. And you both have these screens. I'm just rushing through because I'm not doing a full sizzle, but it is worth talking about because it's actually really cool. You have a screen covering up both of your maps, and the runner is trying to move their little figure of a runner around the map to collect 3 gadgets, and then end up at one of the 2 safe houses. And the dispatch can see where those locations all are. And in order to move, the runner has a series of tiles, which is like a sprint where you can do double movement. You can do like a sneaky move, in which case it's just a single movement. But when they do their move, they actually place it in I think it's called the evidence track, but it's like a track that sits in between both players where the dispatch can see what movement they did, whether if it was a silent move, then there's just got a question mark on it. If it was a double move, then you can see they moved up twice, they moved down twice. If they picked up a gadget, they can indicate that they've actually achieved one of the conditions. It kind of had elements of Scotland Yard. So, Def, when Mr. X is moving around Scotland Yard, and you can see that you don't know where they moved, but you can see they took a taxi or they took a bus. It has that kind of element to it, and it's also a little bit of like battleships as well, because the dispatch. Nice. The dispatch moves their helicopter, and if you think you want to, on one of your actions, if you want to try and find where the runner is, you scan a column or you scan a row. So you're kind of like eliminating where they are or where they possibly could be. But the maps themselves have some really unique things. So it's not just there's a street, but there's also buildings, and there's fire escapes on one side of the building. So you've got like a 3D top-down perspective of that. So you can go up on top of buildings if you need to go there, or there's gadgets where there's like a hook or a jetpack, so you can leap from building to building. So it does have that sort of cat and mouse I know where you are, I know where you've been, and I know where you're trying to get to, and trying to catch the dispatcher, trying to catch the runner. It's got a real unique ranking system as well, where you start with ranking from 1, and then if you win, you cross that off, and now you go to ranking 2. And so that it has like a bit of a handicap for you, and then once the dispatch wins, then they go to rank 2, and so it does keeps it level, but it keeps it interesting as well, which we really, really enjoyed. We have only played it twice. At the moment, we've actually won 1 each, so we both got to rank up. Looking forward to playing that again. So that's Run by Tim Fowles. Really enjoyed that. The other one of my oaths that I knocked off as well. Well, I've played it. I haven't finished it to completion, but that's Aeon's End, Past and Future. Mm-hmm. This one, it's
Aeon's End.
It's exactly, and that's it. I love it. Aeon's End's in my top 5, but I will say I've got some pros and cons. There's new mages, there's new nemesis. There's actually 2 different storylines that comes in 2 different campaigns, if you like. There's the past, and then there's the future. So the past is before the Nameless actually appeared. It's almost like the first appearance of the Nameless, and where they're a little bit more primitive, and then what the hell is going on, and then it all sort of kicks off from there. The future campaign I haven't done because I started with the past. I thought that maybe there would be some past elements that actually bleed into the future campaign, so I thought it made sense to start with the past. But I love having new mages. I love having new nemesis. Obviously, there's more really interesting cards in terms of being in the marketplace, new spells, new relics, new gems. They've got 2 new mechanics as well. There's a swap one where you'll start off with a particular card, but then there's also a similar card that you put in this swap region on the mat, and at various points you can swap one for another. There was also a spell that I had in the first game where if you you use it to attack, obviously to attack a nemesis or one of their minions. But if it actually kills a minion, then you swap it for a more powerful one. So you're trying to make sure you don't want to just use this just to do damage, but actually wipe a minion off the board. Because when you do that,
like a leveling up,
you can swap it out for another one. This greater spell, even though it's essentially the same cost, it will now do damage on both the nemesis and the minion. That's really, really cool. There's also another a thing called knowledge, where you actually earn knowledge, and then you build up the knowledge in the same way that you build up the ether sparks or whatever they're called. I can't remember. And so you can cash in knowledge and actually do some double damage or get some really cool abilities. Having said that, it's Aeon's End, so I'm probably going to love it anyway. But I had a few nits with it as well. So the first thing is you still have obviously have the nemesis dial, but you have the gravehold dial as well. The game starts off and it's not set in gravehold. So I couldn't understand why there is a gravehold dial. It needs it for the game, but thematically it made no sense. The other thing is it's because there are no nameless to begin with, and you can't buy this and play it on its own. You need to have either Outcasts or the New Age. You actually, the very first nemesis you come across, the first nameless you come across, is one from a previous game. It just says just pick one at random. Because it's more about these new mages and the new abilities. So you're actually fighting against this unknown mage with unknown nemesis, which is from a different game. I thought that for me, what was the harm in throwing in just one more nemesis? Because then the storyline kicks in and there's new nemesis and all these new mages. So but I didn't really enjoy. But the fact that you need to use Outcast or Outcast or New Age as your base game anyway. It's like, well, I'm getting all the tokens and everything out. What's grabbing one nemesis? But so yeah, I didn't love it, but I loved it. I loved it enough to go, hey, it's more Aeon's End, it's more mages, it's more spells, and had an absolute blast playing that. My new oath. This is a game that I picked up at the Melbourne Game Day because we had gumnut.com there with their pop-up shop, and they had a bunch of stuff that was 50% off, and Mike actually went, you need to grab Monolyth. So I've grabbed a copy of Monolyth, which is a Phil Walker Harding game, and Harris swear, by the next time on the pod, I'm going to play Monolyth by Phil Walker Harding. Looks great. I'm going to test it out with the family and see what they think, and I'll report back.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dan. And that brings us to the end of the Swear and Oath segment, which brings us to the end of the show. Thank you both, Conor and Dan. That was a great episode.
Thanks, Jeff. That was
pleasure. Pleasure as always. Always great to get the 3 Ds back together.
Hey?
F, Dan, and Divine.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought of that. There you go. Let's see what happens when the corruption takes over your head like you did mine. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and catch you all on the next episode. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
The Voidfall podcast. Very good.